I can't read that far away.
Bye, Carla.
Hi. Well, I'm going to talk this afternoon about leading share groups and step groups. And these leaders that help us in our groups play a really major role in our recovery. So you may think, well, this session's not really for me. You may not be ready to do leadership in a share group or a step group right now. But we're hoping that in the future, as we keep on equipping, that God will be equipping you to do more and to step up and to be able to have that privilege of being part of the healing process in somebody's life. And to me, it really is a great privilege to be able to lead either the share group or this step study group. And to be honest, I've gotten way more out of it than I could ever put in. More love, more compassion, more empathy, more of healing, more of the things that God wants for me because I was willing to take leadership in the group. So I'm challenging you to think about this, if not for now, then sometime in the future. I want to do that for God. So let's look first at some of the similarities between our share groups and our step study groups. First, we'll look at the leaders. Leaders for both groups should have completed a step study. This is important because you need to be able to know what you are getting into, for one thing, and you have to have some of that recovery taking place before you're ready to lead a step study group in particular. Also, leaders need to be committed to Jesus Christ and developing your personal relationship with Him. That never stops. So the closer you become to Jesus, the more adequate and the more prepared you will be to lead a group. Both groups have co-leaders. And at times these co-leaders may not have finished their 12-step. That is preferable, but it's not always practical. And so if the 12-step study is not done, you would be placed as a co-leader and continue your journey with the 12-step and be learning how to lead a group, particularly a share group. The next thing is that leaders do not teach. That's hard when you have a teaching gift, right, Daniel? It's hard. So you have to continually keep it in your mind. I am not here to teach. The Word is doing the teaching. Jesus Christ, this Holy Spirit, is doing the teaching. I'm here to facilitate discussion. I'm here to facilitate sharing. So as you're doing that, there's a couple of methods that are most prominent in CR. One is what we call the popcorn method, where a question is asked and you wait for somebody in the group to answer it. And it will popcorn because it's that person, then this person, then this person over here. The other way is that you ask a question and you'll go around the group, okay? And so everybody has a chance to take part that way. That's really the way that I prefer, and so that's usually the way that I do it, but it's not set in stone. You do it the way that God leads you and you are most comfortable with. The other thing about leaders is that leaders need to ensure that the group guidelines are being followed. And this goes for both groups. And so those guidelines are going to be read no matter which group you are in. Going from leaders, another similarity is in the group expectations and dynamics. So all groups, as we heard and as we know, are gender specific. All groups follow the CR model. And it doesn't matter where you go, you're going to find it very similar from church to church, from CR group to CR group. Both groups are going to provide a safe place for participants to share. That means that confidentiality is expected and guarded. And that is the leader's responsibility to make sure that that is done. Both types of groups are going to have newcomers and what we might call veterans. And it's good to have both, because you'll see people people at different stages and levels in their recovery. And that, to me, gives hope to especially the newcomer. That I may be down in the dumps, but somebody else was down in the dumps 3 months ago, and look where God has taken them now. And so it's good to have a variety of people in their journey or their process to take part in the groups. Some of the differences that we see in the sharing. Share groups, the participants are allowed to pass. So they would say their name, we would welcome them, and if they don't want to answer the question, that's fine. The day will come when they are ready to answer, and we will celebrate that day when it comes. Until then, we wait until they're comfortable. And this will help the new attender especially be able to settle in, see how things work, and at the right time be able to share. The 12-step group, however, has homework that has to be done ahead of time. And every now and then, there's going to be something in life that comes up that you weren't able to do your homework. We accept that, we forgive you. But for the most part, you're going to come prepared with your homework done and ready to share those things. And you share what is written. You don't have to go into a whole pile of details about what brought you here and who said what and why they did that and so on and so forth. You're going to be specific about the questions that are asked and your answer. And it's very interesting what I found, especially in this last group that I met, is the commonality that we see. You know, you can go around the room and people will be having very similar, am I doing something? Okay, similar answers. Sharing at the step group is usually at a deeper level as well. And so you're going to have a depth of sharing that goes beyond surface experience. It's really going to be getting to the heart.
So what's the answer? Sorry to interrupt you. Level in what groups? Step groups?
Step groups?
Oh,
Yeah. Okay.
I should have known that.
That's okay. Some other differences. The components of the group format. Step groups, of course, are longer than share groups. We have our share groups about 40 minutes. And so you can get through, depending on the size of the group, maybe 3-4 questions. Okay, step groups are going to be closer to an hour and a half or 2 hours. And so there's time to include other components, such as a devotional or a worship song. You may want to include a reading from your CR Bible that has meant something to you on the topic of the night. A reading from something else, maybe your daily devotional has come up and it fits right in. And so we have time to share a few more things in the step group. The step group will also each week read the principle, the step, and the lesson together. Where in share group, the lesson is taught, and then you share in the conversation. So those are some of the similarities and the differences. What are the priorities for a group leader, whether a share group leader or a step group leader? I think the first priority is that we need to pray. Being prepared throughout the day and thinking about the lesson and praying for God's enabling power to love the people in the group, to accept each one, to be able to embrace where each person is. And that's so important. So keep your prayer life, your devotional life, your spiritual life with God intact by praying continually. In fact, 1 Thessalonians 5:16 says, pray continually. 2 words. A really simple verse to memorize, isn't it? Pray continually. Then all you have to remember is the reference to go with it. So pray for God's enabling power. Second priority to me is to know your lesson, especially if you are a step group leader. So if you're leading a step group, take time through the week and use your CR Bible. Go over the principle for that lesson. Go through each of the scriptures that takes you through. If you've done that, it says read this, so you go there and you read it, and it says, now go to page such and such, and you read this. Read those things through the week, and know the lesson thoroughly, what it's about. If you are in a share group and you know that lesson 14 is coming up, go over it. You know, find out what it is saying. Be familiar with it. Also, where am I? Okay. Okay, you'll be surprised at what you use during your discussions when you do this and when you're fully prepared. And then on testimony nights, of course you can't prepare for what is going to be said because you haven't heard it yet, but we do put the guide sheets on the table. So if you are a share group leader, take notes.
Really good.
Answer those questions for yourself. On the flip side, take extra notes because you will be making reference to that for your questions. Okay, that's where your questions come from. It's the notes that you take for the testimony. Our third priority for a leader is to start and end on time. You start on time because you don't want to waste time. This is precious time that is devoted to God. You know, and so we need to start on time with our groups, and your participants are going to find out pretty quickly if they're arriving at 10 after 7 that you start at 7, because they're going to have to walk in and find it on the go. Okay, so we want to respect people's time as well, not just God's time, but respect other people, and that's why we're going to end on time. Hints for facilitating your groups. First of all, in the area of responsibilities, determine between you and your co-leader who's going to look after what. Do this before your meeting. I know Candace and I use text because we both have very busy lives. And so for a few days before the step group meeting, we were texting, are you doing this? I think I should do that, blah, blah, blah. You know, and get it sorted out ahead of time. As you go along, the co-leader is going to be asked to take on more responsibilities as the group continues, and this is because it's a training time. Yeah. We are hoping that the co-leaders are going to be prepared next time to be the leader with somebody under them. And so they're going to learn to take different responsibilities in the group. If you are a share group leader, use the leader binder that we have. They're blue, they're always on that counter over there, and they are going to make sure that you cover all the components. Not like me, the first week back after Christmas, oh, I forgot the guidelines, oh, I forgot to introduce myself, oh, I forgot this, I should have been reading what was right in front of me. So take those blue binders and follow them through, make sure you get every component in there. And also, we put in the worksheets for that lesson. A testimony and night, of course, there are not going to be worksheets in there. Those are on the table. But distribute the worksheets that come in the binder. And then your participants can take that home, and it's a little review of what the lesson is all about, and their questions and answers can be on that as well. The next thing is to keep track of who is there. It is. It's really important. And I can't turn my page. There we go. So what I like to do at the share group is to write the names when you first go around and introduce yourself. I write the names at the top of my note page because there's bound to be somebody that I don't know their name. And then when it comes around, I can say, thank you for sharing, Sonny. Welcome, Deb. Whoever it is, and I have their name there. Also for me, writing it down, I'm a visual learner, so writing it down helps me to remember their name. As a step study, note who isn't there. You see who has come, but also note who isn't there. Why would you want to do that?
Follow up.
For follow-up.
Right? Correct with love.
Correct with love. Do you know what? It's not even correcting. It's showing concern. Okay, follow up with them. Give them a shout or a text or whatever. Say, we missed you. Is everything okay? What can I pray for you? Those kinds of things. And so we want to make sure that everybody knows that they are loved. They're missed when they're absent. and that they're a vital part of the group that they are in. I also like to keep all my phone and text numbers in my phone, so that is handy. And my group participants know that they can text me at any time. Pray for this, I'm going through that, whatever it is. It's a good way for sponsors and accountability partners to keep track of things too. Use your phone. Let's see, newcomers is the next thing we're going to look at. As leaders, you need to realize that the newcomers need a little extra guidance. So if you have a newcomer, take the time and share a group, especially if you're talking, to explain some of those dynamics, such as why we read the guidelines, or that they're allowed to pass. Remind them of that. And then, this has already been said, but sit with your newcomers. Sit with them at Crosstalk Cafe. Get to know them on a different level. Your welcome to them is important. You're reminding them that you know their name. You know that they are important to God, that they're valuable. When you sit with them and talk with them and ask them things about themselves and share things about yourself, it is very, very important for those newcomers to know that. Also, introduce your newcomers to somebody. So when you come back from share group and you're going to sit at a table with different people, say, this is my friend Karina. She's just come here. This is only her second time here. And this is so-and-so, you know, and so you're introducing them to somebody else. We do that because Crosstalk Cafe and the coffee beforehand are places where they're going to find those accountability partners and sponsors. They're going to find people of like mind, like experiences and so on that they can relate to. The next thing is your sharing time. Keep on using the introductions. It's really tempting, especially with step group, not to introduce yourselves each week. So even when everybody there knows each other, you're going to use those introductions. And why do we do that? Training, part is training.
Help us remember names.
Helps us to remember names, which is important.
Helps us own what we're
Exactly.
sharing.
It helps us to own, to personalize what we are saying, to personalize those questions and the answers. And so I like to say, well, I'm Shirley, and I, whatever the question is, you know, and answer it that way. And so if you answer all of your questions with that, if you can repeat the question that says, when do you do such and such? You say, I'm Shirley, and I do such and such, and continue on. Stay in the allotted time for sharing. Now, this is really difficult for some people. Not for everybody, but for some.
I'm sorry.
And if the guidelines are not kept to and understood beforehand, then it's really hard when somebody goes over to step in and say, okay, time's up, next person. No, you don't want to do it that way. So if you have somebody in a group that tends to go on and on, maybe after your group guidelines are read, just explain that one in 3 to 5 minutes. You know, we don't need all the details. We need the highlights. We need to know what you're feeling, what God is saying to you, that kind of thing. Okay, so do it ahead of time. Now, this is also great if you use a timer, like our men do. They use the timer. The men say they don't talk, but they're the ones that need the timers.
We're the worst.
It's just on the phone.
So when they blame us, ladies, we can just remind them it's you guys who need the timer. Okay, in step group, remind your people, your participants, to stick to their answers and not to wing it. So if they haven't done their homework, if they can't say it concisely, they're going to have to pass. Okay, the time is precious there for one thing. For another, it trains them to do their homework. Again, if there's been a very stressful week or a crisis or something like that, be forgiving, be allowing, you know, be generous and allow them to answer, but If you're going to wing it, you're going to be saying things 2-3 times, or not saying what you really mean, or whatever. So try to get them to stick to the answers. The other thing is, don't be afraid to talk about your victories and positive changes. You know, the first time that I led a share group, I thought, God's done so much work in my life. I don't have anything right now that's relating to this desperation. Should I make something up? You know, and no, if you are in a place of victory, share it, because that gives hope to the person who is not. Okay, if God has made changes in your life, then it helps the participant to know that God can make changes in their life as well. It's already been said, I think, in the sponsor and accountability one, don't forget to share about your struggles as well. There were a few times where I had tears because I had blown it. You know, and I had to share that when the question came up. And so it shows that we're all vulnerable, we're all people, we're all forgivable, and God is working on every single one of us. Now, particularly for step group leaders, there's a high accountability for step group leaders. So we want you to be as prepared as possible. Again, for those of you who are at that place yet, that's fine. Just take this in, because it's going to help you if you become an accountability partner or a sponsor or any of those things. So when you first begin your step group, take the first meeting. Don't do a lesson in particular there. Explain how to use the CR Bible. Show them what the different components are, and especially show them how to go through the principal studies and to follow the scriptures throughout. You're going to want to discuss the importance of regular attendance and of the preparation, so the homework that needs to be done. Another thing you want to do at your first meeting is really encourage sharing the phone numbers and keeping in touch with one another. So we started out handing out a sheet with people's phone numbers. We asked them first if this was all right to do. They said yes, and so we handed it out, and everybody was able to put it into their phone. This is good because it starts building the bond. So at first you might just say, oh, are you coming Tuesday? That might be, you know, your first communication with somebody, but later on it's, can I pray for you? Or this is happening, would you pray for me? Or I'm really tempted for such and such. You know, whatever it is. But you can't just jump in there. You have to have a place to start. And so if you start at your first meeting and sharing those phone numbers and making sure that you are, as a leader, are contacting, then the group participants will do the same kind of thing. That's really good for accountability partners and sponsors as well. Facilitating the step group discussion. This is really important because do you know what, in all the CR material I've read, this is not covered in how to actually facilitate the discussion. So one thing that I learned to do, which was very helpful, I started this in the share group and then I continued when I led the step study groups, is take notes as the group shares. I write quick little reminders beside the questions. You know, so-and-so, and one word that reminds me of what they said. Or they come up with a really startling good answer, you know, and you think, I want to remember that. And so I'll write it down on the wall. Or you notice the commonality that goes all the way around the room. You know, write down those kind of notes and comments, common themes, difficulties that someone in particular is having. I also know who needs extra encouragement that week. Okay, so write it down so that you don't forget it. You can always go back and explore these things after. I often use the popcorn method of question and answer when we're going over something that is beyond the actual questions in the step study guide, and let people speak, and not everyone has to participate. Another way to do it is you can do it When the question is given and you notice something that really needs to be addressed that has gone all the way around the room, stop the study where you are and discuss that question or the points that have been made. Another way is to wait until the lesson is done, because you want to respect the lesson and have time to go through all the questions. So wait till the lesson is done, and then, if you have time, bring up that common theme or the difficulty or whatever it is and discuss that after. If someone's really struggling and there's a lot of distress, you may want to stop then and there and pray for that person. I like to ask them, is it okay if we pray for you? You know, and they may not be able to emotionally handle it and they'll shake their head. You know, that's okay. You know, but they know now that I'll be keeping them in prayer. Another thing that you can do is, if you've known that there's been one or two people who have had a particularly hard week, at the end of the lesson say, let's all gather around so-and-so and pray. It's important for them to know that they are cared for. Another thing is, group leaders that you need to do is watch for the progress in their journey.
I'm sorry. I'm going to jump in for 1 minute.
Oh, you want the mic though?
I just want to be clear too. We're talking about step studies and leaders and share groups. We're talking about two different things here. In our step study, the person who should be taking notes and things is the leader of the step study. Okay? In our share groups, we do not encourage taking notes, partially because new people often can feel like, what are you writing? When someone's sharing valuable, vulnerable stuff, and someone's taking notes, you instantly think they're writing about me. So we and CR, not just us, CR does not encourage notes during share group at all. And again, I would say we don't even really encourage it during step study. We encourage the leader to keep track to facilitate the group. So I just wanted to differentiate, because I know we're going through a lot of things here. But in a step study, a 12-step, where you're hitting on deeper issues, and Shirley is the leader of that 12-step study, where we're going to be praying with each other, where we have an hour and a half to 2 hours to go through some of these things. This is valuable. I just wanted to make that distinction, just so that we're all on the same page, and suddenly next Tuesday people aren't starting to take notes on what's, because that is not recommended at all. So,
thank you.
Would it be good to, when you, as a leader, when you're going to take notes, to explain why you're taking notes in your group or not? Doesn't matter.
I don't think it matters. Sometimes I'll say, oh, that's good, I've got to write that down for myself, you know, that kind of thing. Be discreet when you're doing it. And remember that you're certainly not going to use it to, what's the word I want, break any confidentiality or anything like that. But yes, it is a guideline that you're not taking notes in the share group. I'm talking about this step study. Okay? Yeah. No, that's good. So we're watching for progress in their journey. You know, sometimes somebody is going to come and they'll feel like they're getting absolutely nowhere, especially when we get to the inventory stage. And it's your encouragement that's going to help them to see that God is at work. We can also commend them on the work that they are doing. It is hard work to go through a 12-step study. Most of you here have been through that. You know what it's like. And so commend them on the work that's being put in. And verbally commend participants when you notice a particularly important step in their recovery. You know, this is going to make them be encouraged and become an encourager. So you can't encourage someone else unless you've experienced it yourself. And it bonds the group together. Okay, so just some little things to remember. Matthew 18:20 says, "For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there I am with them." Remember that. that Jesus is there in the midst of that group, whether it be a share group or a 12-step group, Jesus is there. As we're talking about prayer and holding each other up, our last group decided to do prayer cards. And at the beginning of the lesson, when people were first coming in, we would fill in a prayer card, stick it in a basket. At the end of the lesson, we passed the basket around, we all took the prayer card out, and we took it home. And you prayed for that person during the week. Well, about halfway through, one of the participants said, well, I pray for you every time I paid my bills. Say what? You prayed for me when you paid your bills? I don't get it. And she said, well, I put your prayer card right with my debit card. So every time I took out the debit card, pay anything, I was praying for you. Oh, what a great idea. Apparently Candace still has one by her debit card, and she's praying for that herself. Okay, why do we need to pray for one another? Well, I guess it's to know each other at a deeper level when we share prayer. It also reminds us, and we can realize how important it is to rely on God. It's not the group, it's not the leader, it's not the person who's sitting next to you. It is God who's doing the work. Jesus Christ, our higher power. And so when we are praying for each other, we're going to Him. It builds a sense of responsibility toward one another in the group. If you have promised to pray for somebody, you're learning to be responsible for them. Again, at particular times you may be aware that someone's really struggling, and you can take the time to pray for them. Now that person may want to keep it private, so make sure as you're leaving or something that you spend a moment in prayer with them. It doesn't have to be prayer in the group. Okay, now, as far as how we put all the lessons together and everything, I'm very thankful for Daniel. He put together an agenda, our very own agenda, that helps us to get through our step study in 6 months. And some of the shorter lessons we compress, so we'll do 2 on one night instead of just 1. And I have found that it's not too little time, that you're still able to get to the meat of things, and it's not so long that people have to drop out. And so most people can commit themselves to a 6-month period, and it's really, again, we need to respect each other's time and responsibilities and so on. Now, included in the agenda is an evening to work on the inventory to get the participants started. Boy, did that make a difference. It really did. I gather the men have been doing that for a while. Okay? So on the first lesson of the inventory, not when you get to actually doing it, but the first lesson of the inventory, take your resource pages to the group setting and explain how they'll be used. And then collect them back. You'll give them out on the week that they're to start the inventory. But they're going to have an idea now as we go through the next 2 or 3 lessons as to what's being expected. So your 5-column worksheet is used for those who have heard you. We have a 4-column worksheet that is used for those you have heard. Okay, so 2 different worksheets for that because you're doing it at 2 different times. We have a list of feelings, and this is very good when you're looking at the effect. How does it make me feel? Am I overwhelmed? Am I joyful? Am I despairing? Have I lost hope? Whatever it is, that list of feelings is going to be the effect. When you get to the damage, we have a list of character defects, which is very helpful to realize, oh, okay, I see it. I'm codependent. I'm a perfectionist. I'm this, I'm that, and something else. And it helps to put words or definitions to the way that you're feeling and you're acting. Okay? Then there's we need to balance things. So there's a list of Christ-like qualities that we are going to use to keep the balance. And what I like to do is flip the inventory page over and write out the quality that Jesus is building in me. Maybe it's patience. maybe it's kindness. You know, going through this experience has taught me da 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 da. And so you're balancing the good with the bad. We also have a sheet that talks about, what is it, the good I have done. And we used this in our last group before doing the inventory. We took the list of good I have done home and filled it out and brought it back and shared it. For anyone who is going to be a leader or a co-leader, I have written out some instructions on how to use each of those resources. And we also have the schedule, the 6-month schedule written out so that you know which lessons to combine and so on. So if you want them, they will be at this front table here. I think that's everything. Okay?
I'm going to piggyback on you a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our step studies, share groups are really the backbone of Celebrate Recovery. That's where people are going to grow. That's where people are going to experience change. I'd like to just show you guys the papers too, just so you are aware, and then we can we get the 5-column, the 4-column, the good I've done, those ones she just listed there. So just so you know, we've gone to a 6-month step study time frame. Reason we've done this now, Celebrate Recovery as a whole usually recommends a year. Okay, so it's not uncommon for a step study to take 8 or more months. We really looked at it and said, okay, how do we still honor what Celebrate Recovery is doing? But how do we also create opportunity for new people to come and not have to wait a year until the next step study? When I first came, I had to wait almost 6 months before I could even get into a step study, and I was eager to get into one right away. So ideally, this is to help us get more people into step study. It's also to help us continually get people out of step study so that they can now lead share groups, because our plan is to grow. That's the plan. So again, we do recommend as well, we invite Crossroads to join our step study groups. Sometimes our timing works a little better for their participants. And if you find a group at Crossroads that works for yours, please do it. Because the goal is growth. The goal isn't like, oh, we need you at this step study. Grow. A little bit of a leader plug here. If you happen to go there for a step study, don't leave us. Come on back. We'd love to have you serve here. If you want to serve on Friday nights, that's up to you, but we would love to have you here as well, serving here. That's what I ended up doing. So this is it's on our Facebook page. How many of you do not have Facebook? Okay, that is okay. You do have Facebook. You're just never on it, Pastor Mark. This is on our Facebook. We will email this out as well. So make sure that we have your email list. But if you do if you are leading a step study, there's also a short half-hour training. This video will now be available as well. I've done one that just really goes through the schedule. How are we doing with those sheets?
You just want the 4 and 5 column ones?
Yeah, the 4, the 5 column, and the good I've done. Thank you. I just wanted to give you guys the visual of this as well, just so you know for step study. Some of you have already seen this. Do you have the good one? And then we're going to take a break, and then one last session, and then Pastor Mark's going to pray for us and commission us, which really, when a pastor prays for you, now it's the real deal. Now you're a leader for the rest of your life. That's how it works. So. Okay, yeah, I'm going to show that after the break. So the very first one that we do, step study. How many of you have done a step study here? Who here has not completed a step study? Okay, that's great, because this day is for everyone. But this is now some of the things you can expect. Obviously, inventory is a challenging thing in step study. I really like to encourage people, though I don't think it's as bad as sometimes people make it out to be, like, oh, inventory's the worst. It really doesn't have to be. And if you follow the schedule and you follow the tools that Shirley has just shared with us, it actually becomes very doable and very easy to work through. So the first sheet that we recommend, and some of you did Crossroads, so this might be a little bit different. I would love to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly about what you think about it. The first one we do is the good I've done. Because inventory often is a lot of beating ourselves up. Oh, this was bad. The pain that was caused to us, the pain we've caused to others. We like to start with the positive. Because then as you start to trek into the inventory side of the good, the bad that's been done to me and the bad I've done to others, you can always go back to the good. We originally had the good I've done and who it impacted. So in the men's group, sometimes we would share, oh, you shoveled your neighbor's driveway. Well, that's a good thing to do, and it impacted your neighbor. But we've added a third column on here, the Christ-like character that showed. Because it's not just that you shoveled someone's driveway, it's actually that you're a servant. It's actually showing love. It's actually showing, and so now as you look at your character defects, you can also look at your positive characters and go, but I'm still a loving person. There's kindness in me. I want to grow those things and shrink the bad ones. Yeah. We really focused a lot on that in our men's group because it's so easy to ignore the good you've done and focus on the bad. And I've shared stories here many times. There was a girl in high school that I knew that I just said hi to every morning. Years later came back and told me, that actually prevented her from taking her own life. What was the good I did? I just said hi every morning. I smiled. I met her outside and welcomed her to school. We sometimes downplay the good we've done, even though that changed a life. And then we magnify the bad we've done. Well, I hurt that person, and they're not even thinking about it anymore. When you go to make your amends, and they say, oh, I haven't thought about that in years. But we magnify the big and we shrink the good. We want to try and switch that a bit, that mindset in step study. And then the other ones are the same that every step study is probably doing. The damage that's been done to me and the harm that I've done to others. So if you guys have any questions about that, we will answer them. We are going to take a 10-minute break. Grab some food, grab some coffee, stretch your leg. You don't have to have food. Please, I'm so full right now, and I don't think I can eat anymore. But 10 minutes, and then we're going to get going again and finish off the afternoon.